Once more, the drama begins. The Emperor Paul Muad'Dib on his ascension to the Lion Throne. Welcome to Reading Dune, a podcast where we read Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert and talk about it. If you're a Fremen or a first-time reader, this podcast is for you. My name is Caleb Pauls.
And I'm Evan Diaz.
And together, we're going to read some Dune.
Yeah, we are.
Today, we have a guest on the show for the very first time. Simon is from Dune Newsnet. Simon, you want to just introduce yourself and say hi to the people?
Sure. First time caller, long time listener. Honestly, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I'm part of DuneNewsNet.com, where we cover pretty much Dune news. Also, we have our own little show called Dune Talk, and where we cover everything. We cover the movie news, we cover the books, we spoil stuff, but we try not to. Okay, for new people, toys, comics, everything. Your one hub news for Dune, and we're really excited to work with you guys and do some podcasting, some love for Frank Herbert's masterpiece.
Yeah, Dune Newsnet is great for all of your movie news, anything about like the possible Bene Gesserit show coming to HBO. That stuff we will just talk about in passing here. They'll dive into casting and all that stuff. So that's definitely a resource. We are not those people. We are
the stuff we don't talk about.
We're trying to keep everything in less than an hour, and that's just one chapter at a time. There's so much more in the Dune world that could be covered. But
yeah, our film commentary was insane. I think it was like 10 hours or something. We're like, well, look at this shot right here. So Denis put the camera here because, Shalmi was going to walk in right here. And Oscar Isaac is looking down at the cemetery because he's Dune.
Probably the Denis commentary isn't that long.
Right.
But I would still, that sounds great. That's funny. Okay, first things first, man, this quote right at the beginning, I think is spectacular. And the music I put to Messiah, I just feel it's extra epic. And this quote is so small that the music just goes on for like a good minute.
Right.
When there's nothing there, just builds up. Once more, the drama begins.
Which is
so
kinda
sad.
Yeah. Just kind of feels like Paul starting off this chapter by going like, all right, here we go again.
I mean, yes, 100%. So, especially here we go again. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has purchased merch from the website, readingdune.com. We're getting orders every day. Our inboxes are flooded with people wanting hats and mugs. No one wants a shirt though, so we may take those off.
Everyone's digging the mug. I feel good about it.
It is. And when people are posting in pictures, they got it, what they're drinking, what the coffee they're drinking it with.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. There's something that's special inside that I know there's a bunch of people out there that are keeping it spicy.
For sure. Maybe we should have a show off your merch channel on the Discord.
I think we should. Show your merch. We'll have to add that as soon as this episode's over. Also, I just want to thank everybody who's donated on Patreon. If you're watching this, you're here with us live on YouTube. You can see that our list of people on Patreon is getting longer and longer and bigger and bigger. I'm going to figure out another way to showcase how many people are supporting this show. I just want to say thank you. This show would not exist without people like you. Thank you. Okay, once more. The drama begins. Oh, Jim says we should make sure to say blur, 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 blur. Just how if you're just listening, this is your first chapter and you want to know who HAYT is. That blur, blur, blur is how I talk about the guild navigators, and we'll get some of that today. So perfect.
Here we go.
All right, let's start this chapter. So we get this chapter. We start in a very weird place. We start in Aaliyah's secret spy window. So she has her own little cubby that she like gets into and has a little peephole, and she can just peep on everything that's happening.
Right. Where was that?
It's above Paul
It's like
somewhere.
in the like rafters somewhere, like in the ceiling.
Yeah,
That's what I
throne room?
pictured.
Yeah.
That's what I pictured. She was just like, "What's my brother up to?"
Right.
Who's that?
That's what I thought as well. I always want to make sure. Sometimes I'll just like read into something that's like not there at all.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So that's where she's there, and I think that's good for Paul. Paul probably wants her there if he's honest.
Right.
We're honest about it because she's going to see things from a totally different perspective, and she's got like 1,000 years of wisdom stored in a little 15-year-old body,
And she's even more creepy now.
and she's especially more creepy
for sure.
So, all right, she's in her secret spy window, and she's looking down at the great reception hall. And I think we need to overemphasize how big this hall is. It is huge. And when you're walking down it, and we'll get to this in another chapter where somebody has to make a very long walk down this hall, it is supposed to make you feel small. At the end of this is just Paul in his throne, on the lion throne, in this radiance, and all you can do is stare at him. And the whole floor is made of this blue and green mosaic tile, which is supposed to look like water. Something we also saw earlier on in Farouk's house, right? This imagery of water is now brought everywhere. It's this symbol of opulence. And Aaliyah is watching the entrance of the guild entourage and the steersman himself in a giant blue-orange tank. From her vantage point, the steersman and the entourage are approaching the lion throne and looks like a hunter stalking their prey through the waters of the deep. So
I pictured like them like the wording was just so descriptive that it seemed like they were like dancing their way down the hall. You know what I mean?
I mean, you can get that swimming motion almost. You kind of feel it.
Oh yeah.
You know, as I don't know how. Well, it's never actually described how the guild steersmen in their big tubes of tanks move. It's probably just in a linear line. But he's probably just doing a little swerve as he's moving it along or something. But yeah, there's definitely this stalking, this hunting thing is hunting you.
Yeah.
Which is directly what's happening, right? Because the steersman, as we're going to go on, this is the trap that's being set out. He's going to set the trap before her. So Aaliyah's up in her secret spy window. Right below her is Paul, who sits on the lion throne. He's wearing a formal crown with a fish and fist emblems.
Which is really interesting because...
Is it?
Yeah. So hear this out. The fish. It's iconic. It's Jesus-like, you know.
Okay.
But there's a fist. So I'm a god, but I'm going to create a genocide at the same time. It's very yin and yang when you think about it. It's very peaceful with the fish, but the fist is like, yeah, I'm going to take you down, but I'm going to love you. And you're going to love me.
Interesting.
And the fish isn't native to Arrakis either. That's another sign of opulence.
Yeah. I mean, we know Arrakis didn't have water for such a long time. And Caladan was known for fishing. So maybe he commissioned someone being like, okay, so this is what I'm picturing. A fist and a little fish. Can we make this happen?
Yeah. A fish would probably be like a unicorn on Arrakis, you know, like you can't, or like some mythical creature. It'd be like, there's no way that exists, you know?
It would be stuff of legends like, wait, a fish? What is that?
It's a being that can only survive submerged in water. Like, what?
Mine's water. I mean, I'm just surprised it's not a giant sandworm. If I'm completely honest, like I'm a giant sandworm for the imagery of a god just sounds appropriate, but it's neither here nor there.
He's trying to be humble.
He's trying to be humble. Well, okay, you're right. He's only trying to be humble, covered in golden jeweled robes, and there's a shimmer of a personal shield that's surrounding him.
Right.
Just humble guy,
And I love how he's got a shield around. Like, all right, so remember the first time we saw the Emperor, he's like dressed in his Sardaukar, like I am a man of the people kind of thing. Well, Paul has moved completely away from this.
Right.
When the steersmen interact with him, Paul's like, no. I'm wearing gold and robes, and I want my personal shield. I want you to see me that I glimmer. Which is funny because shields also aren't good on Arrakis. So we're just throwing away Arakeen customs completely here.
He's definitely got mixed branding happening with his whole like Emperor situation. It's like some of it's Fremen, some of it's Imperial, some of it's just like wacky left field. Has nothing to do with either,
Yeah.
Look, he was going through his Kanye phase. He was listening to a lot of Kanye, and he's like, I'm going to be like Kanye from now on.
Call me Muhad'Dib.
I like the old Atreides. I like the old Paul.
So the bodyguards are fanned out on the dais down to the floor. Stillgar is there, 2 steps to the right of Paul, and he's standing in white robes with a yellow rope as a belt. So no still suit, just in white, which I also feel is weird for Arrakis. I feel like that would get dirty really easily. Again, neither here nor there. But Paul was focused on the man in the right front corner of the entourage as it was coming towards them. He's dressed in orange robes and has steely metal eyes, which don't look to the left or to the right. The face beneath the curly black hair was a face Paul had seen before. Every gesture from the approaching man shouted a familiar identity. Who was it? Evan, who was it?
In Idaho.
Bum, bum, bum. Then we get Aaliyah's perspective. It shoots back up to the secret peephole. She's like, it couldn't be Duncan, but it was. Captive memories absorbed in the womb during the moment her mother's spice changed identified this man as Duncan. And Aaliyah Paul knew it was also Duncan. Paul shuddered in her private spy room. This was a Twailaxu Gola, and being reconstructed from the dead flesh of the original. That original had perished, saving Paul. This could only be a product of the Axtol tanks. Oh, crap. I forgot to look that word up before. Simon, how do you say that?
Dude, between my crazy English and my French, it would be like, I don't know, it would be the Axtol tanks. No, I think you say it properly. Like I remember reading the audiobook, listening to the audiobook. I think that's pretty accurate.
I mean, listening to audiobooks is reading. That counts to me. I know this is a real word. It's not a made up word. It's it has to do with
up.
Oh,
it's axolotl.
Axolotl. Thank you.
Sure. That makes sense.
We're all about learning here at Reading Dune.
It's a tiger salamander. What do we know interesting about salamanders?
This one in particular, I know for a fact, is very cute. Have you seen axolotl before? They have like the little face. They're like, they're just like adorable to be here all the time. Yeah, if you Google image search an axolotl, they're real cute.
So axolotls are unusual among amphibians in that they reach adulthood without undergoing metamorphosis. So they that joke of you were just born old. That's what they are. So I also Wikipedia. I did not make that up. I read it.
Nice.
All right, axolotl. Got it. Woo! I'm going to mess that up again. We'll just say that right now. All right. So the group came within and stopped within 10 paces of the dais. Paul nodded to the guild ambassador, saying, I am told your name is Edric. We welcome you to our court in hope that you will bring new understanding between us. So here's my question. Either one of you could answer. Why is Edric here? Besides the obvious of the trap. He's there for another reason.
I want to say it's like a PR stunt to make him look good.
So in the what was it? Not the last, maybe it was the last chapter. Yeah, it was the last chapter. They're talking about the guild wants to have a embassy on Arrakis.
Oh yeah.
And Edric is their chosen ambassador to Arrakis from the guild, right? And of course, Paul wouldn't let this happen for so long. And then, of course, Stillgar and Corbo were like, no way, Jose. And then Paul was like, no, this needs to happen now. Why does it need to happen now? Bum, bum, bum. Even though we're going to get later on that Paul didn't know this was coming, I think he could feel something was happening in the universe. Maybe. Andrew Floyd on YouTube says, convenient, huh? Yeah, of course.
Wasn't there? There's something that happens with like the prescience, with like two prescient people will like cancel each other out.
Yeah, they can't see each other. They can only see where each other has been. It's weird.
So like if they're on the same planet, if they're like always near each other, what happens?
I think it's the Back to the Future effect. Like they can't be next to each other because then
they'll sleep with their mom. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then rewrite history. No, but I honestly, that was a good one.
Sorry,
I honestly think it would just have like a mental block on them.
Okay.
Kind of like maybe they're tripping out like, whoa, you're too close. You're like, I don't know. There's something weird about
it. Yeah, I imagine it's like when there's something stuck in your eye and it's like blurry. And only have that one eye in that one spot. It's kind of probably how there is with their like ocular vision and they're seeing their prescience. So you can kind of see the future just as blurry in that one spot.
Gotcha.
All right, so the steersman, Edric, floated around in his giant orange tank. He popped a melange capsule. You know, he needs to get high again right before this encounter. I want to make sure my intentions are hidden. And then he meets Paul's gaze. Coughing and then rasping in an uninvolved voice, said, I abase myself before my emperor and beg leave to present my credentials and offer a small gift. Now, I didn't do the blurbs here because this is a formal setting, and I think he's using a translator.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I think that there's like he doesn't want his full intentions to be really known because we know Edric would give it away just like that. He would fish splain everything he's trying to do. So he's trying to just slowly kind of fake.
So Paul, we got you this gift. It reminds you of one of your best friends and one of your trainers, but it's not really him, but it's him. But you'll find out soon enough what we want to do with you.
So the credentials happens. It's still a formal event. He's the ambassador, right? And the aide passes it up to Stillgar. Stillgar looks at it, nods to Paul, and now both Stillgar and Paul are staring at the Gola, who's just sitting there, waiting patiently, minding his own business. Paul says to Edric, without taking his eyes off the Gola, explain the gift. Edric rolled around in his tank, saying, this is a man called HAYT. HAYT. According to our investigators, he has the most curious history. He was killed here on Arrakis from a grievous head wound, which required many months of regrowth.
When I was reading this last night, I literally saw his head just like a time lapse.
Like growing.
Right?
Dented in as a
it's like a 3D printer kind of.
Right. So Edric says the body was sold to the Beni Twailaxu as a master swordsman. It has come to our attention this must be Duncan, Idaho, a trusted retainer of your household. We brought him as a gift befitting an emperor. Paul is silent, staring at the Gola. Like, no shit, you knew it was Duncan, Idaho. Like, you stumbled upon this fact and happened to give it to me as a gesture of gratefulness? No.
By the way, sorry for the snoring. There's a little pug down here, and his name is actually Duncan, Idaho. That's how much I love. Yep, that's how much I love Dune, and I love that character. So, which is funny because usually when I record, he's never near me because he's like, "Oh, you're gonna be talking about me today." Okay, cool.
He knows. He knows.
He knows what's up.
So hopefully he's. Well, never mind. Here we go. Edric peered up at Paul. Is it not Idaho, sire? Restraint and caution gripped Paul's voice. He has aspects of Idaho. The man known as HAYT stood impassively, his metal eyes fixed ahead. Edric speaks up again. According to our best knowledge, it's Idaho. He's called HAYT now, Paul said. Curious name. Edric quickly rebuttals, not to leave any room for silence or Paul to think about anything. Sir, there is no knowing how the Twailaxu pick their names. Names can be changed. The Twailaxu name is of little importance. Don't think about the name. Why did they just call him Duncan if it's such a big idea? I'm so confused.
Well, this is something I've always thought.
Yeah.
Timmy. Here's something I've always thought. Do you think his name is HAYT because in some way in the back of Paul's head, he hates everything that's happened when the attack on Hurricane happened, and he could never save Duncan? Like he has hatred of that moment in his life. Like
there is a lot to unpack, and I don't even know the real answer here. And he gets into it. It's like Paul says we need to keep the name HAYT because you're not Duncan. And I need that caution because otherwise I will trust you too soon.
Yep.
And there needs to be that you look like my friend and act like my friend, but you are not my friend. Therefore, there's something that I need to hate about this whole situation, so it keeps me on guard. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting name. I don't know why Frank picked it. I didn't know it was even pronounced HAYT until I listened to the audiobook, so glad I did that. Axis77 on YouTube says, I always pronounced it height. See, there's enough of us out there that don't know how to pronounce this.
Well, when I first heard the audiobook, when they said HAYT, I thought it was like eight, like I hate you, like that. And then I saw it spelled. I was like, huh, interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, and even Edric says it's HAYT, and then he spells it out. HAYT.
Of course he would.
So Paul says he's called HAYT. That's a little weird. Edric rebuttals. We don't know how the Twailaxu picks their names. Paul thought to himself that if the Twailaxu are involved, that this is bad. The Bene Twailax held little attachment to phenomenal nature. Good and evil carried strange meanings in their philosophy. What might they have incorporated in Idaho's flesh? Out of design or whim? Paul looked at Stillgar. Stillgar hates everything about this. He hates the guildsmen. He hates the Twailaxu. He hates Golas. He's still that nice Fremen we want him to be.
Right.
Paul then addressed the steely-eyed Gola. HAYT, is that your only name? A smile spread over the Gola's face. The metal eyes lifted to look at Paul. That is how I am called, my lord. HAYT. Aaliyah, in her spy hole, after hearing the Gola's voice, knew it was him. It was Duncan. HAYT says the name means nothing to him. And Paul asks, do you remember anything from your past? HAYT says he remembers nothing. All that remains, however, are the patterns set by his genes. And sometimes he remembers familiar things like voices, places, foods, faces, sounds, and the feeling of a sword in his hand or the controls of a thopter. Paul asked if HAYT knows he's a gift. He does. Paul sits back, resting on the arms of his throne. He thought to himself, do I owe anything to Duncan's flesh? Duncan did save him, but this isn't Idaho. This is a Gola.
Right.
So Paul was kind of probing here. Are you Duncan? Are you HAYT? What is your programming? What are you here to do? You look like my friend and sound like my friend. Are you my friend? I think he's trying to dig down in there. What is underneath all of that programming?
It's called reverse psychology. That's what Paul's doing right there. Just being like, So what's up? How do you know me?
Yeah.
Did you know Alito by any chance?
You're right. Just a bunch of leading questions, trying to get the answer.
Yeah.
Yet, right in front of Paul, here he was, his teacher, his best friend, the one who taught him everything about fighting with a blade. But this flesh, this Gola, was full of false impressions. The old associations would persist. This was Duncan in a Gola mask, which I always thought was very interesting. It's like the Gola is wearing Duncan, not Duncan wearing the Gola, like the Beni Twailaxu want, which I always thought was very interesting. So Paul asks him, "How might you serve us?" HAYT replies, "In any way my word wishes and my capabilities agree." This looked like Duncan, but with his flesh had been cleansed. This was a pure surface for the Twailaxu to write their schemes on. Historically, the Twailaxu displayed a disturbing lack of inhibitions in making their creations. They boasted they could make anything from the proper human material. They sold killer mentats, killer medics, human sex toys for any whim, soldiers, generals, philosophers, and occasionally a moralist. Question, Evan. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It said they'd produced a killer medic overcoming the Suk inhibitions against the taking of human life to do it.
Yeah.
Are we talking about a specific killer medic?
You're thinking one that starts with the letter Y and ends with a UE?
Yeah, possibly. It's like so close of a description that I'm like, did they do that? Like, is that what this sentence is saying?
Actually, yeah, we can go into this. I mentioned it in that chapter with Yui, and this is encyclopedia knowledge, which is not quite canon, but the question was, how did they get Yui to break his code, his Suk doctor code, right?
Right.
And the rumor, the oral histories, you may say, was that Piter came down with face dancers as Wana to trick him into believing that she was a lie to break his conditioning, so he would act out of love and hate versus just hate over the Harkonnens. So that could be, they did probably make something in that had broken the things. Killer mentats, so twisted mentats also come from the Twailaxu. So I'm sure the Baron had a very close relationship, so he can get what he wanted. I think of the movie with the giant spider that looked like a human sex toy, maybe. So there's lots of things. These guys are they do anything they want in any way just to see how things work out.
Yeah.
And you can do it in 4 easy payments of $19.99.
So it could have been them that did that, like messed with Yui is what we're saying. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Good. I like the face dancer idea that it was totally messing with Yui because she was probably dead by that time. But hey, I need your help. They're keeping me hostage. Help me. Kind of that whole help me Obi-Wan, but not really.
Right. And which caused him to turn and do all this stuff. Right. So again, we do not trust the Beni Twailax. They cannot be trusted.
Sketchy.
As far as we can throw them.
They're sketchy, for sure.
So Paul now directed his attention at Edric. All right. So since he's not going to give me any information, how about you? How has this gift been trained? Edric says that HAYT has been trained as a mentat and a Zen Sunni philosopher. And they attempted to make him a better swordsman, but they were unable to tell if they were successful because he was already the best in the whole Imperium.
He's kind of a big deal.
So, Simon, can you break down what a Zen Sunni philosopher is for us? I'll put you on the spot.
All right, without spoiling stuff. It's someone, imagine a Zen Buddhist. That's what I would go with the best, kind of at peace with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm completely wrong, but that's the way I've always looked at it. Very calm and analyze everything and not jump the gun, not being like, well, we got to do this right away. Just being like, very Spock. If we're bringing up other franchises, kind of like overthinking everything, being like, yeah, we can do this because of this and this, not just being like, okay, we got this. We're going to do this right now.
Right.
And that's the way I looked at it. Someone very calm and at peace with themselves, very still, very stoic in a way. That's the way I look at it. I don't know, without talking about further books, it's kind of hard, but Caleb, am I close to?
Yeah. So like the Fremen are Zen Sunni by nature, right? It's that we're looking at how the universe is balanced, and they pull in the Zen from Zen Buddhism and the Sunni from Sunni Islam, and they're merged together. Very logical way, very poetic on how the world works, right? The Fremen would take water for the good of the tribe, right? This is almost a poetic act as well as balancing how things are all together. Right. So a Mentat, which Paul is, Zen Sunni, which he has pretty much adopted in order to become a Fremen god. This is like his perfect mental sparring match. So he's like, not only is he great with a sword, but now he can spar with me mentally as well, which I think probably just turns Paul on, because the only person that can really do that is his sister.
Right.
So he's like, ooh, all right, cool. Somebody else I can kind of like this. HAYT is designed to tempt Paul, and they did this on purpose. Anna Van Loon on YouTube says they just tried to make him a bestie. Yeah. Paul just needed a best friend, and they're like, who better than his old best friend?
Because Stillgar's kind of a
jerk. He's always been that weird uncle we don't really like.
And he's so grumpy. Like Duncan was always like, "Hey, Paul, you want to go fly? I'll teach you how to do some swords trick.
Right.
Pick up on the girls."
Right. Duncan was always with the ladies.
Yep.
So, all right. So Paul listened. Truth Sense told him that Edric believed that the Gola was Idaho, but the name HAYT spoke of peril. Paul felt tempted to reject this gift. He knew he couldn't choose this way, though. That deep Atreides sincerity in him would not let go of Duncan's flesh.
Yeah.
Even if he was a Gola. And of course, his enemies knew this. Paul asked if the Gola, do you like the name HAYT or Duncan better? Gola literally has no preference. So Paul asked him, how does the name Duncan Idaho make you feel? Looking for any hope that Duncan is in here somewhere. The Gola laughs, which catches everybody off guard. Looking for signs in others which reveal my former self. Do you see such signs here? Paul says. Oh, yes, my lord. Your man Stillgar is caught between suspicion and admiration. He was friend to my former self, but this Gola flesh repels him. You, my lord, admired the man I was, and you trusted him. Paul asks, how can he submit himself to servitude and bondage to Paul if he has that quote-unquote cleansed mind? The Gola respond that a quote-unquote cleansed mind makes decisions in the presence of unknowns without cause and effect. Paul scowled. Go ahead.
As someone that totally believes in cause and effect, it's a very existentialist chapter for me.
Yeah.
I believe if you have cause and effect, like you do something, if you're being an asshole in the world, karma's going to get you back.
Right.
And if you put out good deeds and you try making an effort, like maybe, without going totally personally, I practiced Buddhism, for several years, 11 years now, and looking at it and really going, hey, I'm going to make a change in the world. I'm going to go the extra effort. And Paul's just like, well, this guy doesn't believe in cause and effect. That's weird. It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's right. And this is totally a Zen Sunni way of looking at the world. Like, in the presence of unknowns, if I have no idea what's going to happen, I'm not going to think about what's next. I'm just going to go. Which I can kind of understand this. But like, Paul is even pondering now. Like, unknowns lay at the core of every decision, even like in his ocular vision, in his prescience, right? If there's an unknown event, he can see which event's going to cause all of these things in either way. And he's like, ugh. And even in the Nexus events, he can just move forward. But it's like, what? So of course, Paul is turned on by this mental thinking. So he asks him another leading question. You'd prefer we call you Duncan Idaho? The Gola says he doesn't care. So Paul responds saying, all right, your name shall be HAYT because it inspires caution, not to trust this being. With that, HAYT bowed and took a step back. Their interview is now over. Which Aaliyah was like, how did he know? What's going on? So she's very into this right now. Paul then turns to Edric saying how they've set up his quarters, right? And he should wait there until called upon. Paul also thinks it's important for Edric to know that the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mahayim, bum bum bum, was removed from the Highliner that brought him. Grandmama. She was there hiding, but not anymore. He found him. And that her presence on the ship will be part of their later talks. Like,
we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, that's the shit. Why were you hiding her from me? With a wave of his hand, Paul dismissed the envoy, but beckoned HAYT to remain.
I love that line, by the way. That is Paul Modide, like, I am God Emperor right now. Just being like, go. Hey, you stay. We're going to talk a little bit.
Yeah.
So the entourage and the giant orange tank slowly turn around and leave the Great Hall, which I imagine took some time because it's a very big hall. And everyone's just sitting there in silence watching them leave. Like, dun, 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 dun. As they leave the room completely, doors closed, moisture seals all locked up, Paul thought to himself, the deed has been done. I've accepted the Gola. This was all bait. Even the Reverend Mother on the ship was bait, and Paul knew it. This was a trap, and he just put both feet in. Which I think is funny, because we look at Leto, his father. The trap was right in front of him, right? Here is Arrakis. All of the riches you could ever want. But you know it's going to be a trap because the Harkonnens aren't going to give it up easy. What are you going to do? Jump in the ring. You look at the grandfather, right? Fighting bulls in the arena, knowing this could kill you. We're just going to step in. So
those Atreides are, they're very gung-ho about challenges in their life.
Yeah, they just walk in. They the best trap to them is a trap they can spring themselves. They want to know what's happening. Yeah. So now we just have the Gola, we have Paul, and Stillgar still there. Stillgar steps in front of Paul, looking him square in his blue on blue eyes, and says, the creature in the tank gives me the shudders. But his gift, send it away. Paul's like, nah, I can't do that. So Stillgar rebuttals, Idaho is dead. This is not him. Let me take his water for the tribe. Which is by far the most metal Fremen thing ever. I'm really glad he does it.
I actually think that's like the best definition of Stillgar ever.
Yeah.
Just being so like, no, Paul, this is what we got to do.
Yeah.
And Paul just being like, no, it's cool.
Yeah,
I got my own plans.
I'll take care of it.
It's cool, my guy.
I mean, yeah. Paul says the Gola is now his problem. Stillgar protests, but finally says, very well. Steps down the dais to leave. But as he walks past HAYT, he gives him a good smell. What you smell like, boy?
You think that was like a very, like, did he walk by and just kind of like, or did he like walk up to him and like give him a big old sniff? You know what I mean?
He took a big old whiff.
I think
he just went,
yeah,
I don't like this.
I feel like I'm picturing the Stillgar from the movie, just like walks up to him, stops, turns around, gets up real close to Jason Momoa, gives him a big old sniff. That's how I was picturing it.
It's just like when they spit on the table and it's like, what is happening? But you're just sniffing each other. Just what is happening? So, right. Of course, Paul loves this. He just gets a kick out of it. and thinks how Fremen believe evil can be detected by smell, which I think is so funny because their sieges just reek. Like they smell awful. But they're like, no, that's the smell of home. So they're looking, they know smells.
Well, when the evil Imperial people show up, they all smell like soap.
And that's evil.
So that's how they know.
Hygiene is bad.
Yeah, the smell of evil is the smell of soap.
Golly. I mean, we can just rabbit trail on that real fast because how many of the Fremen now know opulence and culture and smells good? How far have they drifted into using Dr. Bronner's every day to get that makes your peppermint fresh instead of the smell of sand? So of course, Stillgar does this, and he's like still trying to figure this out, even though Stillgar has planted the green and white Atreides banner on a dozen worlds, which I think is crazy. Stillgar's led all of these battles, massacred all these people under the banner of Muad'Dib, but he's still deep down a superstitious Fremen.
He's just doing it for his LinkedIn. He's got to look good.
He's got to look good. So Paul, now alone with his gift, whispers to himself, Duncan, Duncan, what have they done to you? HAYT hears him. I don't know how. He's got crazy eyes. Maybe he's got crazy ears too. And says, they gave me life, my lord. Paul asks again, but why were you trained and given to us? And here it is, the thesis statement, just underline it. HAYT says flat out, they intend me to destroy you. Bum, bum, bum.
And I feel like that's Duncan speaking right there, not HAYT being like, hey, my lord, Paul, we've been through so much together. I'm going to tell you what they want to do with me and you. I don't think HAYT per se would set that because he was so robotic in a way when Paul was like, should we call you HAYT? Should we call you Duncan? But I feel like that's the Duncan part of him being like still showing emotions and maybe starting to wake up and realize who he is.
Right. And he just flat out just tells him, which of course the candor of the statement just shook Paul. Right. But again, this is how a Zen Sunni Mentat was supposed to respond. Just flat out tell you the truth.
Right.
So now he can't. Is this Duncan trying to save me? Is it just the programming?
Right. At this point with Dune, though, when I read that, I underlined it because I was like, what is the purpose of him saying that the intention was to destroy? Like, there's always like plans within plans.
Yeah.
So like he was in my brain, HAYT was supposed to tell Paul that he was intended to destroy him. What does that do for Paul? Like, what does that mean to him? And like, how does that make him, like maybe the honesty is making him trust HAYT even more. And in that, like in that trust, it's building up the idea that this is Duncan, Idaho or something like that. It's like, where's the scheme? Where's the poop? There's something is rotten in here. We got to figure it out,
Something smells bad.
And it's also really a big mind fuck for Paul. Like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
Like you guys were saying, like, I see everything that before it happens, but I didn't see, this happening, that you're going to come and kill me and destroy me.
Yeah. Anna from YouTube says, and how do they destroy him? They destroy him physically, psychologically, and spiritually.
Well, she phrased them as questions, but yes, seems to be the answer to the question.
Right. They want to take him down in every capacity, and taking his best friend and using him against it. That's just an extra form of rotten. So, and of course, Paul was looking that the Twailaxu did something in the flesh.
Right.
And we look at the eyes. They don't need to have eyes like this. Yet we have steely mechanical eyes. This was a deliberate choice, which I also think is weird.
I like the mechanic eyes. I really do.
Why?
It makes it. Oh, Evan, you got your little your little stuffed animal. Everything's gonna
My
be okay,
emotional
buddy.
support worm. I need to hold on.
It gives it that sci-fi feel, but yet not over sci-fi. I feel like it just goes with the world that Dune is. And I love that if it was just Duncan with his normal eyes, Paul can maybe see in his soul, but it's like a shield kind of like blocking Duncan or HAYT.
Yeah.
So Paul looks up to Aaliyah in her secret little spy room, wishing he knew what she was thinking. Paul looked back at Duncan. All right, so you're here to kill me. What should I do to protect myself? And HAYT says the same thing that Stillgar says. You should send me away. So Paul asks, how are you to destroy me? HAYT looks at the guards, then looks around the giant room, and finally brings his steely eyes back to Paul's. This is a place where a man draws away from people. It speaks of such power that one can contemplate it comfortably only in the remembrance of all things finite. Did my lord's ocular powers plot his course into this place? Which I'm like, what? What are you trying to say there? Paul drums his fingers against the throne's arms. This was a leading question, seeking from a Mentat who's just looking for more data.
Right.
How do I do this? So HAYT and Paul spar back and forth now with Zen Sunni sayings, both Mentats now looking for more data. Finally, Paul says, you must teach me this Zen Sunni way with rhetoric. HAYT's metal eyes glittered for the moment, and then said, my lord, perhaps that's what was intended. Paul responds, ideas are most feared when they become actions. Which, if you're not underlining that in the book, that's some good juice right there.
That is good juice.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk all day long until you make an action.
Well, it goes back to the whole cause and effect. Like, you're going to make this cause the action right there.
Yeah, that's really good, right? Because he's countering that Zen Sunni philosopher in him being like, we can't, in order to change the universe, you got to make it, you have to do something. HAYT at this point almost pleads with Paul, like Duncan would plead with his young friend, saying to send him away. Paul feels trapped by the voice, and he said, you will stay, and we both will exercise caution. HAYT then bowed in submission. Paul glances up towards Aaliyah again. Golas were ghosts to frighten children. He'd never thought he'd know one, even being emperor, which is weird. But to know that this one he had right before him, that almost crushed him. This Duncan, was too much to handle. Paul closed his eyes, thinking to himself, why had no vision showed him this? And HAYT is still all right there, watching this whole thing happen. Paul opens his eyes and spoke. HAYT, do you have the power of prescience? Like, if I can't see you, why can't I not see you?
Yeah.
So can you also see the future? HAYT says no. So that's nice. But Paul could feel something hideous clouding this Gola from him. And then here it comes again. Disengage, disengage, disengage. The thought trolled his mind. Those were Frank words. It trolled him.
That's told.
Oh,
you goon.
Oh man, I think it's so much better if it's trolled.
I'll put an R in. Right.
Thanks. All right, you goon. Disengage. So yeah, there's that something in him that's telling him to leave, almost deep within him, like a terrible purpose again. Leave. Aaliyah sat in her secret spy room, hand on her chin, staring down at the Gola. There was something about this flesh that was almost magnetic. The Twailaxu restoration had given him youth and innocent intensity, which called out to her. She understood Paul's unspoken plea. When oracles failed, it was time to turn to real spies and physical powers. She wondered about her own eagerness to accept this challenge. this challenge to get close to HAYT. She felt drawn to this new man, to touch him, to feel him.
Oh gosh.
He's a danger to both of us, she thought. And this ends the chapter.
Yeah, basically Aaliyah looks down from her window and is just like, "Tell me something, girl."
Right?
Boom, booty, boom, 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 boom. She's into it. It's weird. It's
Yeah, we
weird.
should rename him not HAYT, but Hot. Woo!
I was like, this is some fan fiction now.
I mean, she is prime 15-year-old hormonal energy with a bunch of old women inside her as well who know how to make babies. And that's been their purpose for so long, is to make sure that the line continues. She knows what's up deep down. And of course, HAYT is, we know this, the plan, like Diana on YouTube says Aaliyah's first crush would be a Gola. Yeah, that fits her creepy weirdness. But yeah, there's this. HAYT is also a trap for Paul and a trap for Aaliyah. The plotters need both of them down.
Yeah.
In order for if it's just Paul staying out of the picture, you're gonna have this new religion built around Saint Aaliyah of the Knife.
Right? I would be terrified if it was just Aaliyah by herself. I think she would go full Bene Gesserit, Scarlet Witch, House of M. If you guys get that reference, you know what I'm talking about. I think she would be a force to be reckoned with. Like we always say Paul is the one, but I feel like Aaliyah would create even more genocide. Like you killed my brother, I'm going to take down the world, pretty much the whole universe.
I definitely think she's more scary than Paul. Paul has some restraint a little. She's full blown. She could also fulfill the prophecy just as well as he could, right? She was born on Arrakis, to like the Bene Gesserit. So like she also could fulfill all the stuff. So, all right, here we are. The plot has been set. HAYT is in the room. Congratulations, Evan. We now have Duncan, Idaho back, but is it Duncan, Idaho?
No.
Or
it's
is it?
Not.
Or maybe?
Or is it? Maybe it's not. Maybe there's a plot within plans. All right, we just want to plug again at Dune Newsnet for Simon for all your Dune-related news.
And we also do a podcast called Dune Talk that we're available on YouTube, all those, and, podcast catchers. We're going to be collaborating more together. So I know Caleb's going to be on our next show. And Evan, I think you should not listen to that one because we're going to talk about the impact of Dune Messiah in the universe.
Gotcha. I'll have to stay out of that one.
Yeah, is there like an opposite feature from Bookmark? It's like just
like,
no.
Block, reject, stay away.
So find us on Twitter at Reading Dune. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Reading Dune. You can go to readingdune.com to buy more mugs and merch and stuff like that. And if you want more mugs, we'll just have to bother Evan in the Discord to make more mug designs if you want more or something. Let us know. Email us, readingdune@gmail.com. I think that's all the things we've got to say at the end. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, stay spicy, my friends. Stay spicy.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.